President Sara Duterte ang administrasyon ng kanyang ama sa isiniwalat niyang korupsyon sa overpriced laptops sa DepEd. Yan ang
蓝牙已准备好，蓝牙已配对成功。
Nasa frontline ng balitang yan, si Maricel Halili.
Isa sa mga pinagkamitan ng confidential funds ay yung corruption sa loob ng department. Madaming reports of corruption inside.
Oo, lalo na nung panahon ng tatay mo. Dito talaga, mas ilalaglag mo tatay mo dito.
Hinimay ni Palace Press Officer Claire Castro sa kanyang personal vlog ang mga pahayag ni Vice President Sara Duterte sa isang forum. Ayon sa BICE, ginamit ang confidential funds ng DepEd sa investigasyon sa mga umano'y anomalya sa ahensya, kabilang ang pagkuha ng overpriced laptop na dumaan daw sa ilalim ng procurement service ng Department of Budget and Management.
Hindi nga sa amin nangyari yung procurement.
Oh. Diba, mga ka-clear? Nilalaglag niya ang tatay niya dito. Sige, papakita ko sa inyo kung bakit. Diba? Inamin niya, hindi sa kanya.
Ayon kay Castro, nilaglag ni VP Sara ang administrasyon ng amang si dating Pangulong
Dumbbell.
Rodrigo Duterte sa isiniwalat niyang korupsyon sa overpriced
Ay,
laptop sa
dumbbell nga,
DepEd.
bibi.
Tanong ni Castro, nasaan na ang resulta ng mga investigasyon kung totoong dito ginamit ang kontrobersyal na pondo. Ang daan-daang milyong pisong confi funds ng DepEd at ng Office of the Vice President ang isa sa mga basehan kaya pinapa-impeach ang PISE. Ayon kay Castro, higit 1.5 million laptop, libro at iba pang gamit sa classroom ang nakatenga sa mga warehouse noong 2020. Sa ngayon, inaksyonan na raw ito ni DepEd Secretary Sonny Angara. Sa panayam naman sa programang Sa Totoo Lang, ibinalik ni Yusek Castro ang pagdududa ni VP Sara kung bakit nasabi ni PBBM na hindi aabot sa kanya ang investigasyon ng anomalya sa flood control project. Una na ring sinabi ng BICE na kumpiyansa siyang hindi siya madadawit sa issue.
So, kung sasabihin niya na siya ay hindi sure siya na hindi siya madadawit. O saan niya kinuha yon? May bolang kristal ba siya?
Sa ngayon, idinadawit sa issue ang kaalyado ng mga Duterte na si Senador Bongo. Sabi ng senador, nililihis lang ang investigasyon at dinadamay ang kanyang pamilya na
好多療程都話可以去黑眼圈，但其實都冇咩用。但係觀塘呢度就可以588。
Meron akong ano. Another regal. Ito yung ano. Ito yung papalit kay ano. Ito yung papalit kay Miriam.
There are moments in international law when the gavel hits not
Welcome back. Hindi ka pa yung magbari-bari ba? O mga DDS, pakinggan nyo to. Hindi ito pasok sa panlasa nyo.
national law when the gavel hits not the accused, but
Si
the accused.
Regal
According
Oliva.
to Reuters and GMA News, the
Best friend
International
ng
Criminal
mga
Court
DDS.
Appeals Chamber has officially disqualified Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan from the Duterte case. The reason? Conflict of interest. Apparently, Khan once represented the Philippine Human Rights Commission in a submission that named Duterte as a suspect, a paper trail that came back like a boomerang to strike him down. In short, the man who was supposed to prosecute is now barred from the very case he once helped shape. Legally, this is no small blow. In the ICC, impartiality is not just a virtue. It is a requirement under Article 42, Paragraph 7 of the Rome Statute, which mandates that no prosecutor shall engage in any manner where their impartiality may reasonably be doubted. And in this case, the judges decided that Khan crossed that very line. But is this a victory for Duterte? Hindi pa. Yes, the disqualification slows things down. It gives Duterte's camp a procedural triumph, a brief sigh of relief. But let's be clear, the case itself does
Pakinggan
not
nyo.
disappear. The wheels
Best
of
friend nyo
international
to.
justice turn slowly, but they turn nonetheless. Deputy Prosecutor Mame Mandiaye-Niang now takes over, and the case remains on track. Baga lang, hindi tigil. This isn't Duterte's acquittal. This is a pause,
Hi.
not a pardon. Still, symbolically, it weakens the prosecution's momentum. Reuters earlier reported that Khan had already taken leave amid sexual misconduct allegations under a separate UN inquiry, a stain that now deepens his credibility crisis. It paints a grim picture. The very man pursuing accountability for crimes against humanity now faces moral questions of his own. And that is the irony that rattles The Hague now. The fall of a prosecutor who sought to stand taller than the accused. But law, after all, is not personality. Hindi tao ang batas. Proseso ito. The ICC was built to outlast any one man's failure. And so it will. In the grand scheme, Khan's disqualification is but a procedural setback. The case will be reassigned, evidence will be reviewed, and the investigation will proceed. Yet for now, the Philippines watches, caught between vindication and vindictiveness. Because while the accused sits in silence in his detention cell, the prosecutor, once
Mike
untouchable,
Dunn, hi.
now stands
Hi.
disqualified, disgraced, and dismissed. Justice, it seems, still has a long journey ahead. But make no mistake, it's still on its way. Another day, another regal
Another regal.
POV. 50
Daming ano niya. Tignan natin yung reels niya.
flood control project cases, 15 referrals to the Office of the Ombudsman, pero walang opisyal ng gobyerno ang kakasuhan. Let that sink in. The Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, proudly says it has gathered damning evidence, documents, testimonies, site photos, everything that should, in theory, strengthen the case and ensure conviction. Pero habang binabasa mo ang mga dokumento, the trail seems to fade. The bulk of the evidence stops right at the doorsteps of those who signed the papers. The engineers, the accountants, the procurement officers. And nowhere do the names of Cheese Escudero, Elizalde Co, Stella Kimbo, Martin Romualdez, and even President Bongbong Marcos appear. So are we bumping into a dead end? Because as every investigator knows, follow the money. Pero kung ang pera ay pinaikot ng maayos, kung ang mga dokumento ay nilinis bago pa man pirmahan, then the ghosts we're chasing are not just contractors. They're architects of a bigger deception. Under the Law Republic Act number 3019, the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, public officials who approve, conspire, or tolerate corruption are equally liable. The law doesn't stop at the pen that's signed. It climbs up upon the chain of command because corruption never works alone. So when the ICI says it will refer cases to the Ombudsman, but will charge no government official, di ba parang sinabi meron tayong krimen pero walang kriminal? Yes, referrals are necessary, but referrals must be fearless. They must point not only to the doers, but to the planners, not just the contractors, but the enablers. Because projects don't fund themselves, budgets don't materialize out of thin air. I still have hope for the ICI. Honest hope that this is just the beginning, not the end. But sometimes I wonder, is hope all we need? Because justice
komersyal. May commercial siya.
Pag-asa lang. It must rest on courage. The courage to follow the paper trail even when it leads to the powerful. The courage to name names when those names sit in Congress, in the cabinet, or in Malacanang. Until then, every flood will remind us it's not the rain that drowns us, it's the corruption that never gets washed away. Another day,
Another regal.
POV. When a man once called Tatay Digong now stands before the International Criminal Court, it is no longer a matter of politics. It is a matter of law. And the law, kahit gaano kapakalakas noon, does not kneel before power. Former President Rodrigo Duterte's camp, led by his counsel Nicholas Kaufman, has now appealed to the ICC's appeals chamber, questioning the denial of his interim release. The argument is simple, that an 80-year-old man, once the most powerful in the land, is not a flight risk. That age and alleged illness should temper. You've heard it. Bam Aquino wants to digitize procurement. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has drawn a line in the sand, a daily cap of 500,000 pesos on cash withdrawals. On paper, it sounds simple. No one can just walk into a bank and pull out more than 500,000 pesos in cash in a single day without scrutiny. But behind the number lies a much bigger story about how we deal with money, trust, and power. Let's begin with the pros. This cap is meant to fight money laundering, tax evasion, terrorism financing, all the dark corners where untraceable cash thrives. When large transactions move to digital or check-based channels, they leave footprints, making it harder for illicit money to slip through. For ordinary depositors, the impact is minimal. Most of us don't need 500,000 pesos in cash in a day. And in the long run, it encourages modernization. More digital payments, more trust in formal banking, less risk of black money floating around. But let's be honest about the cons. For businesses that run on cash, construction, agriculture, wholesale trading, this policy could mean real inconvenience. Paying workers, suppliers, or handling emergencies may now require paperwork, longer wait times, or bank approvals that don't always come fast. Even for individuals, imagine needing cash for a land purchase or medical emergency. The bank can now slow you down, demanding proof before your own money is released. Privacy advocates will also say this forces us to reveal more of our personal financial dealings, feeding a system that
Dito nga sa
already
Hong Kong,
struggles
hindi
with
ka
red
pwedeng
tape. So how will this affect our
mag-remit
economy?
ng more than your
In the short
salary.
term, there will be friction. Businesses must adjust. Workers may face delays in payouts and customers will grumble. But over time, if implemented well, this policy pushes us toward a more transparent, more
Dami niyang katalastas.
There's a proposal now from Senator Alan Peter Cayetano.
Ano naman to?
A snap election.
Or snap
A
election
bold
daw.
idea. Some would say
Pangit. Pangit ka
or
banding.
digital economy. One less reliant on bulky cash transactions.
Ito naman.
When asked about Congressman Martin Romualdez, Undersecretary Claire Castro of the Presidential Communications Office remarked, he is innocent before proven guilty. Tama naman. That principle is deeply rooted in our Constitution. Article 3, Section 14, Paragraph 2 of the 1987 Charter guarantees that every person is presumed innocent until the contrary is proved. A protection so sacred that even the most unpopular accused must enjoy it. But here lies the problem. When the statement comes from Malacanang itself, it takes on a different weight. Claire Castro is not a private lawyer. She is not a television analyst. She is an undersecretary of the PCO, the very office created under the Administrative Code of 1987, Book 3, Title 17, to develop and implement communications program of the President. Her words are not hers alone. They carry the imprimatur of the institution she represents. So, when she publicly defends Romualdez, who happens to be the President's cousin and a central figure in controversies surrounding alleged budget irregularities and flood control projects, it sends a troubling message that the palace itself has chosen a side. That instead of maintaining neutrality, it is lending its voice and by implication its power to the defense of a relative under fire. Public office, however, is not personal property. Article 11, Section that public office is a public trust. It demands accountability, integrity, and responsibility.
身體健康都硬淨好重要，唔同人生階段都係咁講。初初食咗1個月咧，我身體真係硬淨咗喎。嗱，冇咁易病啦，或者病。
Hindi naman niya dinepensahan si Romualdez. Tinanong lang siya, then sumagot.
An office funded by taxpayers to issue or echo statements that favor private individuals, even powerful ones, risks violating that trust. It also runs counter to Article 9-B, Section 7, which prohibits the use of government positions or resources for private benefit. Let us also remember the doctrine of separation of powers. Romualdez is a legislator. The palace is the executive. For Malacanang to speak for a member of Congress erodes institutional boundaries, turning the principles of checks and balances into a tangle of personal allegiance. And optics matter. In a time when this administration is already defending itself from allegations of budget manipulation and pork insertions, the sight of the PCO shielding the president's cousin is not just inappropriate, it is politically reckless. Kamag-anak muna bago bayan? That is the question that echoes louder than any official statement. Romualdez is entitled to his presumption of innocence. The law gives him that. But Malacanang does not need to fight that battle for him, because every time it does, it is not merely defending the man, it is exposing the institution. And in the greater court of public opinion, perception can be as damning as proof. In the end, the Constitution reminds us, public office is a trust. It is not a shield for friends, nor a cloak for family. It exists to serve the people, and only the people. Another day, another week.
Pinapanood ko tong ano niya, marami siyang ano, ito.
You know what's truly alarming? When arrogance is dressed up as public service.
Sometimes you have to bend the law to be able to please the people. Mas mataas po ang taong bayan sa mata.
Datoy.
A fiery debate erupted in the Senate Blue Ribbon investigation when two powerhouse lawyers, Justice Secretary Boying Rimulya and Senator Rodante Marcoleta, clashed head-on over the meaning of protection, privilege, and justice. The atmosphere was charged.
Pwede ba yung ganito? I respect your opinion, sir. But
It is
that's
not my
how,
opinion, it is in the law, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I am
And the arbiter
Sir,
is
can I
the
speak,
law.
sir? Can I speak, sir?
Yes, you
I'm
are.
operating.
Remulla, steady and firm, drew a clear line. Bago ka humingi ng proteksyon sa gobyerno, ibalik mo muna ang perang ninakaw mo.
Hindi lang po batas na nagdidictate dito. It's also what is morally right, what is expected of us. Yan po kasi kahit hindi nilagay sa batas, mga given po yan sa ating lipunan. This is a crime against the
Mr. Secretary.
financial status of the Filipino people. What is the reason behind the law? So that we can get justice, and justice can only be attained if there is restitution.
For him, the Witness Protection Program under Republic Act 6981 is not a shelter that anyone may demand, but a privilege extended only to those who demonstrate good faith. In his words, and in his stance, protection must come with responsibility. Marcoleta, sharp and unrelying, countered only the courts can order restitution. The Department of Justice has no authority to make that condition.
That you may proceed.
Ikaw ang
with what you
nagbibigay
wish.
ng opinion, nilalagay mo yung restitution to test the goodwill of a possible applicant. It is not in the law. Unless you are able to point out the provision of law that it come before. Hindi ganun eh. Sabi mo na nga, and we admitted, impliedly instituted ang civil liability, but this will come eventually after.
37歲咋，佢嘅頭髮又塌又油，跟住仲睇落條界好大。
我決定醒佢一支 Head and Shoulders 科研防血洗髮水。跟住我哋 Karen 嘅實測精神，跟落去洗頭，佢髮量整體咧係多咗好多。自然咧個髮界同轉咧都冇咁明顯啦，睇落個頭都冇咁高㗎。經過科研實證。
That's pronounced kung magkano ibabalik niya kung meron man. Not before.
His argument warned against overreach, that in imposing restitution, the department risks performing the function of the judiciary. This unfolded a clash of legal titans. Remulla relied on Section 3 of RA 6981, which gives the Department of Justice Secretary discretion to admit witnesses, guided by the offense, the risk, and such other appropriate considerations. Marcoleta, in turn, cautioned that discretion, if unchecked, may slip into abuse. Yet, weighing the two, the law is clear. Admission into the Witness Protection Program is discretionary, not automatic. That wide latitude is given to the
Sabog si
Secretary of
Marcoleta.
Justice, and it is only right. Before asking for the shield of government protection, one must first show accountability. And if the department were to demand restitution so excessive as to be unfair, the remedy is not out of reach. The applicant can always go to the courts for proper determination. The system of checks and balances remains intact. In the end, Remulla's position stands stronger. Protection is not a right, it is a privilege. And every privilege comes with a price. Another day,
Another regal.
another regal POV.
Talo si Marcoleta.
The International Criminal Court has now released the document.
Pare ka, adda biro-biro ito yung ako na. Ay, dito.
They call them Nepo babies, a term born in
Pangit. Ah, dito. Ang dami niya na palang, ano, ah, dito.
From City Hall to the digital space, attorney Regal Oliva has built a name as a seasoned lawyer and a widely followed vlogger with over 1 million supporters online. Known for her sharp insights on governance, social issues, and policies, she also made history as the first transgender woman to lead the Cebu Lady Lawyers Association. What drives her to keep breaking barriers while finding new ways to reach and inspire people? Joining us is Cebuana lawyer and vlogger, Attorney Regal Oliva. At good morning, Attorney Regal.
It's nice to be here. It's nice to see you again after a decade or so.
I know, the first time I met you was in University of San Carlos. Yes.
I was a student in the University of San Carlos. I introduced you as our guest speaker.
Yes, oo nga. At saka professor pa rin ako at that time. Up to now, I'm still
Yes.
professor, pero ang tanda ko na pala talaga.
No, not at all. You did not age a bit. I have to
Talaga?
say. And you were one of the most popular lady lawyers at the time because you were fresh from the impeachment of former Chief
Oo nga,
Justice.
tagal na nun, no?
Yes,
It's
that
been 13 years.
Amazing
Yeah.
you until now.
Well, let's go to you, and we want to get to know you better as the grandchild of former Mandaue Judge Alejandro Mendoza and the daughter of City Treasurer of Toledo, Ofelia Mendoza Oliva. How much did they influence you in your career choice?
Of course. Foremost, I'll start with my mom because I was city treasurer first before I became a lawyer.
So nauna kang ma-influence ng mama mo?
Exactly. I would have wanted to become a fashion designer. That was my dream.
Bagay. And you're so fashionable. Look at
Thank
the
you.
way you dress.
That was my dream. But then my mom just placed me in government, and she said that your talent.
要改善肌膚咧，第一步由沖涼做起，揀啱合適你嘅沐浴露，逆轉你嘅敏感肌啊。咁就要揀專為乾敏肌而設嘅阿邊奴沐浴露啦。阿邊奴係全港銷售No.1敏感肌沐浴露，榮獲。
In public service is better off there. And I followed her footsteps as treasurer. And she's not only treasurer of Toledo. She started off as assistant treasurer of Mandaue City. And she transferred to Dumaguete, then Cebu, then Tacloban. Then she went to Pasay City, and then Calamba, and then San Fernando, Pampanga. She's everywhere. And her retirement city was Toledo. And she's an amazing treasurer. I would have to say, until now, nobody can beat Ofelia Oliva when it comes to treasury operations in local government units. And of course, my grandfather is a judge and a very respected judge in Mandaue City. So he also influenced me to become a lawyer.
Ba, talagang, at least napasaya mo sila. Pareho mong
course,
finalo yung
of
path
course,
nila. But
that's true.
you were city treasurer also in Cebu? At
In
some
Mandaue,
point,
in Mandaue.
Sa Mandaue. So, totoo ba na nagkaroon kayo ng away ni former Cebu Governor Gwen Garcia in the past over
No,
taxes?
I wouldn't say away, ha? I was doing my job. She was also doing her job as governor. But then the story revolved around the Cebu International Convention Center. It was newly built. And then she passed it on. The management of the CICC was passed on to a private agency. And that's why, as city treasurer, I collected taxes from them, knowing pretty well that once you pass on any government institution or any government property to a proprietary entity, then that's taxable. Not with the not with the real property taxes, but especially with the business taxes because they're operating it in a private entity. But Governor Garcia did not take it lightly that the CICC was taxed because management was really with the province of Cebu. And so there was a conflict there with me and Governor Garcia, but of course we mend it as always.
How bad did it get? Did you fight publicly? Kasi alam na mo.
It went huge because it was in the headlines for how many days?
Nagsasagutan kayo through the media. Siguro pag ini-interview ka tapos i-interview mo
Correct,
siya.
and it became headlines. And of course, Mayor Cortez was a very gentle mayor, gentleman, and he said he gave me a gag order. Please stop fighting back.
Para matapos na. Sino una nakipagbate? Or sino nag-approach?
Of course, it was me. She's the governor of Cebu.
So eventually, pinuntahan mo siya to just mend.
Yes.
Okay, you were also the chief of staff of Alfredo Bejo Romualdez in Tacloban for 7 years.
Yes. When he was mayor of Tacloban City, he's the father of Alfred Romualdez, who's the current mayor now. When he was mayor, I was his chief of staff, and that really taught me a lot. Because when you're a chief of staff of the mayor, you don't only concentrate with the treasury operations, but with the whole city, local government operations, and it goes grassroots. And then that's why it made me so enshrined with what's going on in the whole situation of a local government unit. And so when I transferred to Mandaue City, as city treasurer, I also can suggest to the mayor what is the best project or program to be funded because I've already experienced being chief of staff.
Yeah, so ang dami mo na palang nag-experience
Yes, exactly, in government.
sa government. But what was the incident that pushed you to enter law school? Is it true that it had something to do with the death of your father and your best friend on the same year?
Yeah, in 2009, Attorney Karen, sadly, my father was sick with cancer and my best friend was also sick with a chronic renal failure. And I took care of them in the hospital. And so that was also the time when I transferred to Mandaue City as assistant treasurer. And being assistant treasurer, not a lot of obligations are in your shoulder when it comes to your job there. So I asked permission from our city treasurer then that if I can enroll law school because it was very near the hospital.
So strategic then.
Correct.
You can be a working student.
Exactly. So I worked with government. I took care of them in the hospital and I studied law school in the evening. But when they passed away, it was just 1 month lang talaga ang pagitan nila sa when they passed on.
Sakit naman.
Sakit, masakit. I promised to them that I will be a lawyer and I'll make you proud.
Kakaiba ka naman mag-cope with grief. Yung iba, maglalabas, iinom ikaw,
But you
baliktad
know, law school,
nag-aral.
Attorney Karen, we know that law school, you can forget grief.
Totoo. You have no time to
You
grieve.
don't have time for
Oo,
despair. You
totoo.
don't have time for love life.
Yeah,
Wala na.
that's true.
Yeah, because, and I think that was the best coping mechanism that I've had
Oo.
in law school because I forget to cry anymore because I need to study.
That's true. And you're just reading morning till night.
Yes.
Napapanaginipan ko nga minsan yung mga recitation at yung mga
Exactly.
exams. But
Di ba napaka-terrorizing ng law school, especially with some professors, that, you know, wala kang karapatan magsadsad. Wala na. You just have to forget it, move on. And I did not know that, you know, 5 years have passed and I became a lawyer.
That's great. Pero buti na lang. And at least you've made your dad proud.
Oh, yes,
May
of
question
course,
ako, in terms of being transgender, you have made a milestone of being one. You're very famous, but also as a transgender woman, you're leading a whole lawyers association in Cebu.
Yeah.
At what point ka nag-transition?
Okay, I have to say, siguro transition kasi it's really in the mind.
Yeah, okay.
But the expression happens not overnight. It happens gradually. And the transition of my expression really happened siguro in college. But when I really wanted to express myself as a woman, and there in Silliman University, I even founded the Basilban Society, which is Bakla ng Silliman Lumalaban.
Oh, wow!
Yes, and
Sa UP Babaylan, di ba?
exactly,
Oo.
and I have to say, Representative Percy Sendenia was my partner in forming that organization, and that's why, because I needed to have a space, a safe space, and so that people would understand what we're dealing with. Because among the LGBT community, it's the transgender who has the biggest struggle, because we transition in the eyes of so many people, and that's why it's important that they would understand our predicament.
Yeah, and yung parents mo, okay, natanggap nila agad yun?
No. It took me a long time. I cannot wear makeup in the house, Attorney Karen. Especially my dad, when my dad was alive, it sometimes becomes a reason for my dad and mom to quarrel because my dad would say, because he's so influenced with your makeup, that's why. Mga ganon. And so that's why it took us a long time. But my siblings were the most supportive.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
So by the time your dad passed away, natanggap niya na? Or just sabi mo,
natanggap na niya.
Naka-transition
Super.
ka na by then?
Yes, it was my dad who was more accepting than my mom.
Talaga? Sa pag-transition?
Yes. My dad was more supportive. He even bought me the wrong shades of makeup.
Pero ang cute naman.
But that's how he was so supportive of me.
And let's go to another aspect of your life. Bakit ka napunta sa vlogging?
Oh, vlogging. I ran for Congress in Mandaue City this past elections, and we all know that how influential or how big a scope vlogging can be for politicians. But I did not know how to vlog because it was not my daytime job. But my mom, during the impeachment proceedings of Vice President Sara Duterte, wanted me to explain to her what impeachment is all about. Why did this happen? Because in the previous impeachments, there were hearings, there were debates in the plenary, but in this kind of impeachment, there was none. And so she asked me, is this legal? She has so many questions. And so I said, I will explain it to you because I was out of town. I'll explain it to you. I'll send you a video. And so I made I told my chief of staff, can you make me a video? Just take a video of me explaining the impeachment process and everything, what will happen and all. So I made that video and she edited it in a way and it's so beautiful. And I said,
Mamo
post-
ang nag-edit.
No, not my chief of staff.
Chief of staff mo. Okay.
She edited it in a way which was so amazing. So you post that in my page because it's nice. My mom wouldn't mind. And so that happened and it took it by storm. And I said, after that, let's make another vlog. And you know, I'm not saying it's addicting. It's just that I'm reaching more to people and I felt that I'm reaching out to voters as well. Because I was running for Congress. And when I lost the congressional seat in Mandaue City, I said, I think I have to continue this advocacy because there are a lot of people who do not know the law. And it seems to me, I never knew this. that
Exactly.
it seems to me
Everybody
that
don't
through
know
these
the law.
vlogs, I can make them understand
Sometimes
the law
they're
better,
ignorance.
in a layman's term, in a way that the CD people, the people in the CD market can understand and can say, oh, this is the law. Oh, this is how it is being interpreted by quoting the Supreme Court as well.
So now that you are a vlogger, meron ka bang dream collaboration?
Oh my goodness. I already am in a dream being interviewed by Attorney Karen Jimeno. I don't know.
Wala ka pang
I did not even look into collaborations. No,
So far, ano ang pinaka most watched vlog mo?
I cannot remember. My team are with it, but I cannot remember. But I think of all the vlogs as equal because I exert also the same effort in every kind of vlog.
Matrabaho siya, ha?
Matrabaho because I do the research. I have an editor, I have a video editor, I have a team, but then the research, you know, that's what's most difficult, to make it short. Because we as lawyers, we make pleadings the longest, diba? The more pages, the better. But how to make it very short, to make it less than a minute, to make it less than 2 minutes, because we all know that the attention span of people watching the social media is so short.
So pinaka-active ka saan? TikTok or Facebook?
You know, I'm active with TikTok and Facebook, but me as a user, I'm more on Facebook.
You know, so the White House started their own TikTok na.
I understand.
Kaka-start
I
lang,
heard that.
Well,
and you know, when I went to TikTok, my daughter was saying, Dada, why are you in TikTok? That's mine.
I have a daughter. Ang cute naman. Okay, so dahil kulang na tayo sa time, we'll do your regal POV na vlog dito sa at the forefront. Dahil sabi mo, kailangan short, iiklian natin lahat ng tanong namin, very short answers lang. Okay, so, just short thoughts straight from Regal POV. Okay, let's start. 1, political dynasties. Should they stay or should they go? What's the Regal POV?
They should go. Section 26, Article 2 of the Constitution is very clear that dynasties should be prohibited in the country by operation of law. In other words, our Congress, we're waiting for you to stop political dynasty. It should go because this breeds influence. Wealth breeds influence. Influence breeds votes. Votes again breeds wealth. And I think it's a cycle that positions have become inherited in this country, and we have to stop that.
Okay, see, ang galing. You've mastered the art of making it very short. Social media trolls. Siguro naranasan mo to. Fight them, ignore them, or engage them. What's the Regal
Fight
POV?
them, ignore them, or engage them. 3. We have to do the 3. We cannot just ignore them. Trolls are there to stay, and sometimes we have to fight them because so that people would also know the truth. Because there are times that when trolls go beyond, especially in personal life, and we have to fight them, especially when they touch your family, when they touch the personal side of your life. But trolls, we all know that they will stay and they will fight to the end until they get you. And that's why we have to be strong, especially in social media.
Okay, very well said and good advice. Okay, federalism versus presidential system. The Regal POV says what on this issue?
Presidential system, we've experienced that. I think we're ready for federalism. Our country is very much separated by regions, by language, and by culture. And I think that the imperialist Manila should be abolished and that other regions should stay strong, and thus federalism should be given a chance in this country. And taxes should be equally subdivided to these regions as well.
Okay. Divorce bill in the Philippines, time to pass or not? What's the Regal POV?
Time to pass the divorce bill. There are a lot of women and men being abused by their partners. And that is why it is timely that for the sake of sanity of children, for the sake of the sanity of the partners, divorce bill shall be passed into law.
Okay. Influencers entering politics, good for democracy or risky for governance? What's the Regal POV?
Influencers have really settled the playing field when it comes to politics. We've seen the Tulfo brothers entering into the highest houses of Congress and Senate already, and they were influencers then. And I believe that if we elect people who have credentials and who have had experiences in governance, your being an influencer does not matter unless you have the heart to serve the public.
Okay, very well said. Lastly, AI and the future of law. Will technology replace or enhance lawyers? What's the Regal POV?
Oh my God, Attorney Karen, you know, I was handling a case on labor and then I fed both cases to AI and it made a very sound judgment. So I would say the future of the lawyers in AI is, I would say, not threatened because lawyering is a skill. And if you have the skill to become a good lawyer, do not worry about the AI. Use AI as your friend. Use it wisely because it can help you in your profession. Make it easier, but then you should also use AI in a sense that it will help other people and you as well.
Okay,
Continue the
tamang
advocacy.
advice. Oo. Kasi meron actually nagkaroon recently ng case where the Supreme Court reprimanded a lawyer for using AI and lumabas mali-mali, pati yung mga kinu-quote niya supposedly from
That's
a case
why.
did not exist. So that's why hindi ka pwedeng tamad naman.
Exactly,
I-feed mo lang
exactly.
lahat tapos cut and paste mo.
True. You have to
Oo.
really, you know, what the AI says, you have to research it back if it's correct and everything. Because in fairness of the AI, it helps you with grammar, it helps you with making it short. But because I have to admit, even in my research, in my doing my POV, I use AI. I feed my very long research, like my 20-minute speech,
Tapos
and then
pinapareduce mo sa
I
kanya.
just make it, can you make it into 2 minutes?
Oo.
And that's the beauty of AI.
Okay, so for those listening, kahit hindi lang lawyers, ibang profession, you can use it
Yes.
as your friend.
Correct, correct.
Okay, so according to an article in Sunstar Cebu, you were triggered to run for Congress because you're being transferred to Navotas City. Meron bang katotohanan to?
That's true. A letter from there was a letter that was received by the Department of Finance, signed by the Speaker of the House, Martin Romualdez, requesting me to be transferred or to be removed by Mandaue City as treasurer.
Bakit si
triggered
Speaker
me.
Martin Romualdez ang nag-sign? I mean, ano ang pakialam niya sa Mandaue City?
The probable mayor who won these elections, the probable mayor was his brother-in-law, and they want me removed from Mandaue City. They felt that I was more close to the previous mayor, which is not true. But what happened was that this is a cycle already. This happened with my mom previously as well after the EDSA revolution, and that's why my mom transferred into Dumaguete City. And I said, you know, enough is enough. You can't do this to my family anymore. And so that's why I gave them an opposition in the party. I may not have lost, I may not have won the elections, but I gave them a very good opposition, and I gave them also a tangible opponent last election.
So ikaw lang ang tumakbo against
Yes.
the incumbent.
Yes.
tatakbo ka pa ba sa 2028?
I'm not closing my doors.
2028?
I'm not closing my doors when it comes to public service. It's a passion of mine. So,
Well,
anything can
technically, you
happen.
have been in public service for many years by being
Yes.
city treasurer.
Exactly.
So, you are also open about your relationship with Barangay Councilor Marco Sanchez.
He's here.
He's here. Ang bait, ang supportive. Okay, so how much support did you give each other during the election?
Without him, I couldn't have passed the elections. I couldn't have gone through it. Attorney Karen, I never knew elections could have been so very hard. No, ang hirap pala talaga ng election. That's why salute to all the politicians who work properly for elections, because it's a very draining endeavor.
Yeah.
And that is why my partner really was there at my back and beside me as well. So I thank him for all of that.
Well, you mentioned a daughter kanina, natawag sa'yo Dada. So,
Dada.
kanino anak yun? Anak niyo ba ito ni
No.
Councilor?
I adopted Rain in 2006. And this is a very funny story. Funny now, but when I adopted her, I simulated her birth certificate.
Aba, admitting in public.
Yes,
Oh.
okay. 2006, I simulated birth certificate. I never knew it was a crime. But in 2009, when I enrolled in law school,
Na-realize mo it's a crime pala.
the first
Oo.
subject, the first topic that we've had in the revised penal code was about simulation of birth certificate. Attorney Karen, I was so quiet about it. I never said it to soul, my goodness, I did a crime. I might not take the bar. But in 2018, I advocated, and I was one of those advocates as well, for the adoption bill. And the adoption law was passed by President Duterte. And in that adoption, it gave us an amnesty for simulation
Yes,
of birth
oo.
certificates.
Buti
And-
na lang.
Exactly. And then I processed immediately
Yeah,
the
the
papers.
legal adoption na under
Correct.
the law.
And
Okay.
this is the most crucial part, because in this law, it states that any person can adopt, regardless of your sexual orientation. Because previously, why did I simulate Rain's birth certificate? Because I was not allowed to adopt. When I tried to adopt, the DSW told me, you cannot adopt because you're gay.
I don't remember reading it, the law na nakalagay bawal ang mga gay.
Exactly.
Oo, wala naman sa batas.
But then
Yeah.
I'm not a good example for
Yeah.
the child. I'm not married now. It should be a family. So many reasons of the DSWD. But in 2018, they were more lenient when it comes to who adopts. And so I'm so happy that the Philippines finally arrived to this point, that really for the betterment of the child and for the best interest of the child, they allowed this. And I was one of those who first got in.
Okay, so since na-mention mo na that you're open to running again in 2028, ano ang gusto mong i-push for na reform should you make it to Congress?
Oh, first, of course, is the inclusivity bill for everyone. And also, maybe because of what's happening right now, there's so many things that we need to push, especially on infrastructure. There should be laws on infrastructure. There should be laws on bidding.
Pero meron na naman, 'di ba? Pero I guess it's just surprising to me that even the department secretary doesn't know until nagkaroon ng ganitong mga exposés na may mga ghost projects ngayon lang nila nalalaman. Parang for me, where did it go wrong? 'Di ba? Na-monitor dapat 'yan, and then you have COA that's supposed to do post audit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know where it really lacks. It's the coordination with the national government, with the local government, and that's why because of the presidential system of government that we have, it's too centralized. Our government is too centralized that the local government has no power when it comes to national government projects. And that's why sometimes, even if it's not needed by the local government, the national government forced in because the congressman
tinanggal nga ni Duterte yung local government
and
noong
it's not even as
2016,
effective. That's why we have
panahon
so many
niya.
flood control projects that cannot control floods.
Kaya maraming
Because
ghosts.
they don't exist, apparently. Tawag nga na Senator Ping Lacson, guni-guni lang pala.
Ayun na nga, di ba? Kahapon, the president went to Bulacan and saw one. That, a 55 million flood control project just existed in paper, but it doesn't exist in actual reality.
And this is just the tip of the iceberg because we
Exactly.
haven't seen the other infrastructure projects.
And I hope to see the end of this, wherein the people liable will be punished and that the president will be very serious with his words, and then mark it as something that he can, when he leaves the presidency, he will leave a legacy of stopping this kind of corruption.
Thank you so much, Attorney Regal. And para sa mga nanonood natin, hanapin niyo po siya sa Facebook and TikTok.
Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube as well.
Okay, thank you so much,
Thank you,
Attorney Regal.
Attorney
And good to see you
Karen.
again.
Good to see you again.
Paingay. Paingay kasi yan. Wala mo.
And so
Oo,
refreshing.
yes.
Both Senator Gatchalian and Secretary Recto are correct. By doctrine, debt is not always a curse. Under our own civil code, obligations create correlative rights. One man's liability is another man's asset. Kaya nga ang pambansang utang, kung hawak ng SSS, GSIS, PhilHealth o Pag-ibig, is theoretically for the benefit of the Filipino people. But the Constitution is equally clear. Article 11, public office is a public trust. Article 6, Section 25, Congress may not increase appropriations beyond what the President recommends in the budget. And yet, what do we see? Budget insertions, riders, and realignments, ballooning to billions of pesos. These are pork barrel in another form, struck down already in Belgica versus Ochoa as unconstitutional because they breed corruption. So yes, debt can be an asset, but only if the proceeds are channeled to genuine development. Roads, schools, hospitals. Pero kung ang utang ay nauuwi sa overpricing, ghost projects at politically motivated insertions, then we are not creating assets. We are perpetuating plunder. That is the breach. We, the people, are saddled with 142,000 pesos each in theoretical liability.
Dami kong utang.
So may utang tayo, each Filipino with 142,000 pesos.
Grabe.
But we do not feel the benefits redounding to the least, the lost, and the last. Instead, we see a government treating our debt as a private purse. Debt becomes dangerous when it finances not the republic, but the republic's corruption. And that is where vigilance, legal, civic, and moral, is not just a right, but a duty. Another day, another Regal POV.
Dami niyang views. Ito, nag-million.
During the 1994 Miss Universe pageant, Miss Philippines Charlene Gonzalez was asked, "How many islands does the Philippines have?" With quick wit, she threw back the now iconic line, "High tide or low tide?"
How many islands are in the Philippines?
High tide or low tide?
She explained 7,106 at high tide, 7,107 at low tide. That single answer etched itself into Filipino trivia history. But fast forward to today, science has rewritten the script. Thanks to the precision of the National Mapping and Resource Information Authority, or NAMRIA, the Philippines doesn't just have 7,107 islands anymore. Now, we have 7,641 islands. So just imagine, somewhere out there, in the middle of our seas, are hundreds of little islands, unseen, uninhabited, and until recently uncounted. Who knows what secrets they hold? Maybe a patch of white sand no one has stepped on. Maybe a rock barely breaking the waves. Maybe a whole ecosystem waiting to be discovered. High tide or low tide? Forget that. Today, the better question is, have we seen all 7,641? Now you know.
7,641.
Ako lang ni ha. Pero if you're wondering kung na-chance nga i-reverse sa Supreme Court ang ilang ruling on the Sara Duterte impeachment based on the motion for reconsideration filed by the House of Congress, murag dili jud. And here's why. First, the ruling was unanimous. All 15 justices agreed. That's not just rare, it's powerful. You're asking all of them to change their minds? Murag lisod. And no one dissented, meaning they were all on the same page about the law and the facts. Second, the motion for reconsideration filed by the House, walay bagong argumento. It's just a rehash of what they already raised or failed to raise. And that matters. Because when you go to the Supreme Court, you bring your best arguments the first time. If you held back, that's on you. Third, the Constitution is very clear. No impeachment shall be initiated against the same official more than once within a year. Not endorsed, not heard in plenary, initiated. And the Supreme Court already said, the moment a verified complaint is referred to the Committee on Justice, that's initiation na. Whether or not the House acted fast or archived it later, too late na. Fourth, the House of Representatives, when they answered the court earlier, they limited their own arguments. Their legal team only raised certain points and left out the others. So when the Supreme Court deliberated, they may have looked beyond the pleadings, public interest case money. And under Philippine jurisprudence, they can take judicial notice of public facts like the number of impeachment complaints, filing dates, official statements, even timelines reported in the media. Kung wala nagiribat sa House, then that becomes part of the broader factual context the court can use. Fifth, naapagyud tong banat ni Speaker Romualdez. Just a reminder that justices can also be impeached. For me, that's not a reminder, that's a veiled threat. And honestly, that does not help their case. It only reinforces why we need the court to stand firm and independent. So if you ask me, will the Supreme Court reverse its decision? No, because this isn't just a legal misstep. They saw a pattern. They saw political abuse disguised as procedure. And this time, the Constitution won. Final na ni. Move on. You know, back in the Spanish era, our ancestors weren't even called Filipinos. That name was reserved for Spaniards born within our islands. Insulares or Filipinos. At the top were the Peninsulares, Spaniards born in Spain. Sila ang naghari-harian sa gobyerno at simbahan. They built a caste system so cruel and precise that it carved our nation's soul into pieces. At the top, the Peninsulares, born in Spain, migrated here in the Philippines. They are the elites, the untouchables. Then came the Insulares or Filipinos, born of Spanish parents but born in the colony or within our islands. Then the Mestizos, Spanish of mixed blood, half Spanish, half native. And finally, the Indios, no Spanish blood. The Indios were taxed more, whipped, and forced into labor. Ah, yes. Nothing says public service like training for a boxing match while the country drowns. General Torre, a uniformed officer, arranged a full-blown spectacle, venue, media, logistics, all to fight no one. Because guess what? Baste Duterte wasn't coming. The DILG, through Secretary John Vic Remulla, issued a travel authority days prior. They knew Baste had left the country, yet Torre pushed through, alone in the ring, cameras rolling, soaking in the glory from an opponent-less match. All for charity, they say, but let's talk laws. Under Republic Act 6713, public officials must uphold public interest over personal ambition, using official time, position, and government resources for a personal stunt. That's a red flag. If public funds were used, light security coordination, that's potential malversation under Article 217 of the revised Penal Code and a violation of RA 3019 or the anti-graft law, especially if favors were exchanged behind the scenes. That wasn't charity. This was theatrics paid in ego and possibly public money, while Filipinos buried their dead in floodwaters. We deserve better. Not boxers in uniform, just real public servants. Another day, another regal POV.
Dami palang red flag. Ang dami niya palang red flag. Ano pa susunod? Dami yan, million of
3
views
names,
niya.
3 microphones, 1 very clear line crossed. Congressman Percy Sidania called the Supreme Court the Supreme Coddler. Political analyst Richard Haydarian accused the justices of being beholden to Duterte. And disbarred lawyer Larry Gadon, he dismissed the ruling as kalokohan and branded the court a lapdog.
So ang Supreme Court talaga tuta ng Duterte.
Now they face verified petitions for indirect contempt under Rule 71, Sections 3, Paragraphs D and F of the Rules of Court, filed by lawyers Ferdinand Tupacio, Mark Tolentino, and Rolex Suplico. The Supreme Court has long drawn the line between critique and contempt. In INRE Emiliano S. Cruz Administrative Matter number 90-4-037, the court held to cast doubt on the integrity of the judiciary with no valid basis is not criticism, it is contempt. And in People versus Godoy, decided in 1995, the court warned that contemptuous statements that tend to degrade the administration of justice may be penalized, even if clothed as free speech. So no, this isn't about silencing dissent. It's about protecting the last line of defense in a democracy. Because when a final ruling is handed down, you can disagree, but you do not spit on the court and expect impunity. Freedom of expression ends where abuse of that freedom begins. Another day, another regal POV. Another proposal to postpone the barangay elections. Papagitan na kat-on. The last barangay and SK elections were already delayed. They were supposed to happen in 2022, but Congress moved them to October 2023. Then came Pabilio versus Comelec, a landmark ruling. In June 2023, the Supreme Court struck down that postponement and declared it unconstitutional. The court was clear. Congress cannot extend the terms of elected officials by merely postponing elections. Doing so violates the people's right to choose their leaders at regular intervals. As the court said, the power to elect is the source of legitimacy, not the power to legislate extensions. Now here's the twist. Those elected in October 2023 are set to serve only until December 2025, not a full 3-year term. And some are crying foul. But let's be precise. This is not a violation. Why? Because that shortened term is part of the remedy ordered by the Supreme Court. When it reset the electoral cycle, it also ordered that the next barangay and SK elections be held on December 1, 2025, and every 3 years thereafter. So no, holding elections in 2025 isn't unconstitutional. Postponing them would be. Ang tanong, hanggang kailan tayo papayag sa ganitong laro? Public office is not a lifetime appointment. Every barangay official holds power only because of the people's will, not because Congress says, extend mo na lang. If we allow another postponement, we're not just delaying elections. We're defying the Supreme Court. We're defying the Constitution. And most of all, we're defying the sovereign right of the people to choose. So let's end this cycle. The next elections must push through. December 2025. No more excuses, no more extensions. Another day, another Regal POV.
Ay, regal. Eh, marami kang ano dito. Marami kang mapupulot na aral. Gusto ko yung, ang dami niyang views.
You watch Claire Castro step up to the podium, tight smile, stiff shoulders, already on the defensive. Kahit wala pang tanong, she looks like she's ready for a fight. Her tone, ang tulis. Her answers, either laced with legalese or thick with sarcasm. A simple question gets a cold retort. She cuts off reporters. She fumbles through names and once casually admitted on national TV, I didn't even vote for BBM. Honest maybe, but awkward as hell. She talks like she's in court, not briefing the nation. Laging may kontra, laging may posture. Instead of clarity, ang binibigay niya ay tension. Every answer feels like a defense strategy, not public service.
Against kay kay Attorney Claire.
They keep sending her out.
Sabagay, pareho kayong
So you
abogado.
sit there,
Mag-ano na lang
watching,
kayo.
wondering, does she realize that her press briefings meant to inform now feel like courtroom cross-examinations? That her answers aren't clarifying anything, just hardening the walls between the palace and the people. At some point, you're no longer watching to understand government policy. You're watching to see what blunder comes next. Because these days, Claire Castro isn't just delivering the news. She's part of the spectacle. Hey, another day. Another Regal POV.
Morning mo ka muna. Tungkol ka.
You watch Claire Castro step up to the podium, tight smile, stiff shoulders, already on the defensive. Kahit wala pang tanong, she looks like she's ready for a fight. She's in court, not briefing the nation, laging may kontra. On July 10, 2025, a criminal complaint was filed before the NBI Anti-Fraud Division against COMELEC Chairman George Garcia and his fellow commissioners. The charge, system interference, under Section 4, Paragraph A, Paragraph 4 of the Cybercrime Prevention Act, or RA 10175, with a record-breaking 66 million counts. The allegations are precise and damning. Comelec allegedly replaced the certified version 3.4.0 software in the automated counting machines with an uncertified version 3.5.0, violating established security protocols. Even more alarming, they reportedly routed over 55 million votes through an unauthorized intermediary server, Data Center 3, bypassing all 5 designated transparency servers. Whew! That's 110,000 counts for each ACM tampered and 55,874,700 counts for every compromised vote. This isn't speculation, it's a formal indictment by bishops, generals, lawyers, and civic leaders. If proven, it reveals a democracy not just mismanaged, but digitally hijacked. Who really counted our votes? And more importantly, can we still count on those who did? Another day, another Regal POV. On July 10, 2020,